seems like it just happened yesterday, not just 72, 73, 75 years ago. I'll start in the beginning, of course, it's always a good sign. I was born in Warsaw, Poland, 1933, so now everybody knows how old I am, and of course, I'm survivors, so most of the survivors now are either in their late 80s, some who are lucky are in their late 90s, but unfortunately, a lot of them are dying pretty quick because they are much, much older. And I'm one of the lucky ones because I was one of the youngest to survive. In the camp, I was 12 years old. So let's see, how many are 12-year-olds? How many do we have 12-year-olds? Oh, okay, so you visualize. I was your age when I survived. But before I survived, I tell you how it all started. 1939, the Germans occupied Poland. It was September 1st, and for 2 weeks, they bombarded the city, Warsaw. On September 14, the bombs finally stopped, and my father was killed. It is so hard to talk. My father was killed from a bomb. And the reason he was killed, he was going out of the house to look for my sister Hannah, who you have on the board, my older sister Hannah. She had gone over to our apartment to pick up some things for the high holidays, because it was Erev Rosh Hashanah, September 14, 1939. And my father went out to look for her, and evidently he was hit with the bomb. A lot of other people were killed too. And for about 3 days, we did not know what happened to my father because he did not come home. Eventually, my mother and my other older sisters all went looking for my father, and they found him on the cemetery. And there were many, many other dead people. The problem was they couldn't bury everybody because there were too many dead people. So what they did with my father was that they buried him in a mass grave for about 300-400 people all in one grave. So my father was killed. I was not old enough to go to the funeral. There was no funeral. My mother would not let me go to the cemetery. But my other sisters went. My mother was left with 6 children. This was 1939. The bombs had finally stopped. The Germans came into Poland, to Warsaw. And in the beginning, they weren't so bad. The army was giving us soup and bread. They treated us fairly good. But this was just still, the war was raging. And everybody went back to their homes by trying to pick up their lives as much as they could. But unfortunately, it didn't last very, very long. This was September 1939. I was looking forward to start school. I had registered to go to school at age 7. And at the end of 1939, the Germans had said, Jewish children cannot go to school. So you put yourself in my place. Here you are, 7 years old, ready to start school, and the Germans said, Jewish children are not allowed to go to school. So we went back to our homes, and before you know it, 1940 began, and that's when the hell got loose. They decided to build a ghetto, and I don't know if you all know what a ghetto is, but the ghetto is mainly a wall around a certain area. Well, our president wants to build a ghetto too, so you know, what does he know? They took almost 400,000 people for an area that would only accommodate 25,000 people. And they built this huge wall, must have been about 2 stories high. And I watched them every day, these people working, and they used the Jewish people were building their own wall. And on top of the wall, they put glass and wire. So in case somebody would want to escape, they would be torn by the wire and the glass. And then they started taking families out of their homes. We were taken out of our own house. We were given an apartment with 2 other families in the ghetto that they were building. And slowly but surely, they were trying to eliminate all the Jews. Not by killing us right away, of course, by eliminating first by starvation, hunger, sickness. They started taking away the young men first, and they claimed that they were taking them all to work. But of course, none of the young men ever came back. So we knew eventually where they were going. And soon enough, we found out, rumors were that they were going to death camps. Then, after they took away the young men, they took away the young women. And slowly, the people were dying in the ghetto from starvation, from, is it typhus? From sanitation. If you know, when you put 4 families into an apartment that is only for two people or 3 people, it was very, very hard. It was hard to live with one another. There was a lot of fighting going on. The hunger was unbelievable. We were all given one a piece of bread, and some soup. That was our diet for the day. And slowly, a lot of people were dying in the ghetto. One day, I remember, I must have been already 8 years old, 9, almost 9. And I was very, very hungry. And I came in and I asked, I was so hungry, and I asked my mother if she'd give me something to eat. And she said, of course, she had nothing to give me. And she said to me, you know what? If you're going to go out in the yard, there's a big rubber ball there. If you play with the ball, you'll forget that you're hungry. And you never forget when you're hungry. There's such a pain in your stomach that you cannot possibly imagine when you're hungry from lack of food. The ghetto went on for 2 years. I lived in the ghetto for 2 years. Eventually what happened was, my grandmother died from starvation. Some of my cousins died from starvation. We were very, very lucky, my sisters and I. I didn't do very much because I was too young, and you gotta realize, since I did not start school, I did not speak the Polish language. I only spoke Yiddish at home. So for me, it was very, very difficult. My brother and sister, my older sisters, were able to smuggle through to the Aryan side to bring in food outside the ghetto. So we were able to have some food to survive. But they risked their lives. If they would have been caught, the Germans would have killed them right away, on the spot. But so we were lucky, surviving in the ghetto with little food that we had. And eventually, every morning, I remember going out of the Warsaw, the gate. The way the European cities are, they have gates, and the buildings are inside the gate. So I remember going out of the gate every day, and every morning I would find dead bodies on the street who had died the night before or a week before, and people would come and pick up these dead bodies. And these dead bodies were all naked, because people would take off their clothing either for themselves or maybe to sell it to other people. That was a very, very traumatic, it's a thing that will be in my mind forever. Then in 1942, finally the Germans decided to liquidate the ghetto. There were nothing left in the ghetto except some little children and some very old people. My mother and sister Masha was still in the ghetto. My two other sisters, Ethel and Mendel, were sent to Polish farms, but they weren't sent. They actually went away to the Polish farm, pretending that they were not Jewish children. They wore crosses. They prayed every day, and pretending that they were Gentile little girls. And therefore, they had a lot of food to eat. But while they were on that farm, somebody had mentioned, a non-Jewish person that was at the farm, said to them, "Did you hear they're killing all those dirty Jews in Poland, in Warsaw?" Of course, they talk Polish, you know. Parszywe Żydzi, they said, which Parszywe Żydzi is worse than dirty Jews. It's just not a very derogatory way of expressing. So my sisters both heard that. They decided to come back to the ghetto. So when they got into the ghetto, my mother saw those two girls, and she got really frightened because they were so fat from eating a lot that she thought that they were swollen from starvation, which eventually, if you starve, you usually get this big stomach, but anyway, they were far from starving. They came in the ghetto, and they were going to try to get my mother, my sister Masha, and myself, and my brother out from the ghetto. But it wasn't that easy to get out, because the walls were all lined with Nazis, Gestapo, the Nazis, the SS, and if there wasn't bad enough Polish soldiers who were just as bad as the Germans. And the Ukraine, they were the worst. They were the murderous people that I can possibly imagine. So this is July 1942. The ghetto is getting empty. My sisters decided to go first, the two girls that spoke Polish with the cross, so nobody was going to stop them. And my mother had said to my sister Ethel and my brother, she said, "You go ahead and I will follow you." And the reason my mother said she will follow us, I think she was afraid that she will either slow us down, or she was afraid. My mother did not speak Polish, my mother only spoke Yiddish. And I think deep down she was afraid that maybe by going with us, that she will endanger our life. On the other hand, my sister Masha, who was 16, beautiful young woman, had one leg shorter than her one leg was shorter than the other one. She was born with a congenital hip problem, which nowadays would have been nothing, they would have corrected. But at that time when she was born, they did not do it. So I think my sister too was afraid to go with us because they were going to slow us down. So we all went towards the wall, my sister, my brother, and Ada, and I. And of course, you couldn't go just walk through the wall, like I said. Underneath the wall, they had like holes that rats would go through. But people would smuggle themselves at night, or sometimes during the day, even if the Germans weren't looking. And we crawled through the wall. We crawled right underneath to go to the Aryan side, right? We were very lucky, nobody saw us. Somebody above was watching us. I've always believed that my father was watching me all my life. So we came back to the Aryan side thinking we'll go to the people that my father knew as a business person, people that he dealt with in business. And by the way, my father was, they made brand new shoes for stores. An order, if somebody would give him an order to make new shoes, he would make the new shoes. He did not repair old shoes. And like I was telling Wendy, if we had a good season, we would eat very well. But if the season was bad, we had nothing to eat. But you know what? The thing was, we talk about it a lot, my brother and I, because most of my sisters are gone now. And we never realized how poor we really were because everybody around me was poor. But we were always happy no matter what. But going back to the wall. So we crawled back to the wall thinking that the people that my father knew